Welcome to the Goddesses of Social Work podcast, hosted by Renita Ray Davis, licensed clinical social worker, board-approved social work clinical supervisor, and facilitator of the Goddesses of Social Work supervision community. Join us as we travel through the social work journeys told by the Goddesses of Social Work community members, past and present, as they make their way toward clinical licensure.
Welcome to the Goddesses of Social Work podcast. In today's episode, Dr. Jenny L. Reed has joined us. Dr. Jenny L. Reed received her MSW from Jackson State University in Jackson, Mississippi. She received her doctorate of social work from Capella University in Minnesota. Her dissertation topic was improving communication between African American parents and their teens regarding sexual health issues, now published under ProQuest. Dr. Reed joined the University of West Florida Department of Social Work as a full-time clinical assistant professor in January 2022. Dr. Reed served as the interim field director from May 2022 until January 2023. During this time, Dr. Reed served with a team that focused on improving agency vetting as internship sites. Dr. Reed was also part of a collaborative effort to improve the orientation process for students entering their internships. Dr. Reed added approximately 300 new affiliates to serve as intern sites for MSW students. Dr. Reed continues to serve as a facilitator within the field department. Dr. Reed is the MSW program coordinator for UWF School of Social Work and serves on the curriculum, admissions, and assessment committees. Before joining UWF, Dr. Reed developed a counseling program at S.L. Jones Christian Academy. With the help of social work interns, the program continues to provide mental health assessments and referrals to the students at the school who are primarily from lower socioeconomic statuses and may not otherwise receive these valuable services. Dr. Reed is the founder and CEO of Basic Building Blocks, Inc., a 501c3 focused on improving life skills in at-risk teens and young adults in the areas of decision-making, anger management, and communication. Dr. Reed accesses community resources to help fulfill the mission of her nonprofit to bring these skills to the targeted group. Welcome, Dr. Reed. I'm super excited to have you on the show today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yay. Dr. Reed, reading your bio, I am super impressed with your effort of obtaining approximately 300 affiliates to serve as intern sites for students. That takes some convincing the others outside of the profession to see the value of having a social worker in their agency. Can you speak to what you believe the value of social work is?
Oh my goodness, that's a huge question. Um, I believe that social work has so much value that there should not be a business without a social work in-house, especially any type of business that serves the community at large, whether that's a hospital, social services, any type of nonprofit organization, politics, any type of agency that directs its care. Because I believe that the value of social worker is that we bring those unexpected values from the people that we serve. We're the ones that get in there and dig out the nuggets, the special talents, the value of the families, and we're the ones that help to identify that. And it just kind of opens up all sorts of windows for us in the community at large. So our value is intrinsic.
It really is. And you said that so eloquently and so beautifully. I love that you said you believe that social work is so valuable that every single business should not be in operation without one. And not only do you say without one, you said without one in-house. So bring
In-house.
them all the way into the building.
Bring them in the
Absolutely.
building.
Yes. And give us a seat at the table. I love that. And let us show you what our value is. Dr. Reed, what did you want to be when you were growing up? Or who did you want to be most like when you were growing up?
Um, well, the interesting thing is that I can't ever really remember wanting to be a certain thing, but I do remember just wanting to help. I had an incident in my own family that drove me to want to help protect children. And that's kind of where this drive came from. I didn't really know what a social worker was. I didn't know if there was some type of career that existed, but there was a situation where I was trying to get help for someone that had been harmed. And it was as though no one would listen to me. And I just remember saying, when I grow up, I'm going to make sure that nobody hurts children. And so my career path took me into 17 years of child welfare. And I guess as a young teen, I began to learn about social work. And so that's where I kind of determined that that's what I want to be. I want to be that. I didn't really know what it was, but that's kind of where that started.
That is such a great answer. And we're about to lean into your social work journey in just a second. But one of the takeaways I just took from listening to what did you want to be when you were growing up is you saw a professional come in and be impactful in your family, so much so that you wanted to also do that for other family members and or children who, just across the world. You didn't know what it was, but it was such an impactful event that it stuck with you. I remember,
Yeah.
on social media, some of my favorite posts are pictures of now professional adults doing their dream job or dream profession, and they either took a picture, dressed as that person and or had a signage over them themselves or had written in a journal of some sort that they wanted to do this thing, and then for all these years later for them to be
They
living
actually
that.
do.
I'm like, wow, when you were a young teenager and to be able to stick through that is
Yes.
pretty impressive.
I just said, I just really can't remember ever wanting to be anything else.
Mm,
So I've always just wanted to help people in that. That's how it translated
yes.
later.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? I was also thinking, Dr. Reed, sometimes these days you see it in movies. I've even seen it in some of my kids' friends' faces. You say or you mention the word social worker, and it's this scary person coming in to do, take, split the family up or whatever.
Yes,
And your experience was impactful enough that it was like, I want to do that. Not the taking of children, but you know,
exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, as a child welfare social worker, unfortunately, one of the things that I did have to do on many occasions was remove a child from a home. The downside is that with that being such a confidential action, we cannot explain what is going on. But what we can say is that at the forefront is the need of that family, how to preserve that family. And sometimes you have to um, move in certain areas in order to make that family whole again. So the objective being is to get that child back into that family, help that family become whole, help that family heal. And so you don't have the advantage in child welfare of discussing those things. You have to simply move in confidence and confidentiality of that family. And that unfortunately has to happen at times. But it is definitely not something that's taken lightly at all.
And I tell you how happy I am that you came on here and did such an amazing job of explaining that whole process. One, for family members who don't get it at the time, but then get it after the fact.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
this is why this person had to come in and do that. For kids who just want to be able to be safe and or even though I know that it could be heart-wrenching, it is
Yes,
also letting that baby know that there are people who are looking out for your best interest. And even though you may not be able to see it right now, there are folks out here who are rooting for you to be successful. And it might take this temporary adjustment to
exactly.
get you on that path. And then for social workers to hear, oh, I don't ever want to work at, in Florida, I think it's called DFACS, and Alabama, it's DHR. I interviewed somebody in Washington, it's
Right.
called something else, but child
Yes.
welfare,
It's child welfare,
child welfare
child protection.
workers to applaud you, Dr. Reed, and say thank you for finally sharing what it is that we do, and for other people to be able to hear this is what we do and this is why we do it, and we take it very seriously, and it's
Oh,
not a
yes.
job that we take lightly, and we don't get our flowers
Yep.
and in fact, unfortunately, like you said, the drawback is we get a reputation of, oh, we're the mean ugly folk who come in and take
Right.
babies.
You learn to understand that because it is something that you cannot explain. And so that's how you kind of build that thick skin as a social
Mhm.
worker. And you understand that people don't always understand. So you don't hold that against them. And you try to work with them, especially the family, to help them understand those people that's immediate, and the outcomes and the gratitude of them, and the thankfulness when that family becomes whole again. It's unspeakable reward for that social
Yeah,
worker.
yeah. It may not be public, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, but it's definitely done. Oh, that was so beautiful. Thank you, Dr. Reed, for that. That was an unexpected blessing today. Doctor, do you mind going ahead and leaning into? I know we talked about philosophically the work you did for 17 years, but start from the beginning. What is your social work journey?
Well, my social work journey is vast. I actually came into the child welfare actually in the last 20 years of my career. And but I've worked in the prison system in Nevada as a case manager. I did group home work in the state of California, where I managed a psychiatric group home there for troubled teens, usually who were involved with the court system, the juvenile court systems there, as well as having some other mental health issues, and they could not remain in the home either because they could not be managed by the parents, or the court deemed that it was better if they were in some type of ongoing situation where they could get ongoing mental health services. So that basically kind of walked me all the way through to child welfare. I always wanted to work in child welfare. I was able to do that within the state of Mississippi, moving from investigations of abuse and neglect, also involving adult as well, self neglect, all the way into which is different a little bit, the foster care, in which we license foster care homes. So the only thing I think I did not do was adoptions directly, but moved into supervision, and that's pretty much where I ended my career, with supervisions in child welfare in Mississippi.
Dr. Reed, you have your BSW, your
Yes,
MSW, your D. We were talking about your triple threat earlier, right? I would love to
right.
hear about your social work education journey. Like, undergraduate, you knew, or somehow in there you figured out social work is where it's at, and then you went into your MSW, and now have your Dr. Jenny L. Reed, DSW. Can you talk to us about your social work education journey?
Um, I absolutely can. I received my BSW from Grambling State University in Grambling, Louisiana. And after that, I ended up just starting, like I said, with different small um, jobs in social work and just started to push me into the group homes and those sorts of things. And that's where I began to realize that I was going to need more education if I was going to be able to provide more services. Because the one thing about social work is that based on your degree level, you're limited on what you could do. And so, one of the things that I knew I wanted to do was I wanted to work in child welfare. And one of the things that I had begun to learn was that the child welfare system was moving in a direction where they really wanted social workers with master's degrees. And even though those social workers were not providing direct mental health services, because we were dealing with so many of our families that were either uh, dealing with themselves, the parents with mental health issues, the children with mental health issues, or mental health disease of some sort, that's where that path was going. So everything I began to see that was climbing indicated that I needed that master's of social work for me to move up. And so I never really was interested in clinical social work as a private practice social worker. But that was also something on the radar that if I wanted to do that, I had to have that master's degree. So, in order to move up in this career, you have to layer that education. And so it took me many years because life happens. And I became a single mom after divorce. And I focused in on my career as much as possible, but also on my children. And when my youngest daughter was in fact, a senior in high school, that's when I went back to Jackson State to complete my MSW. And soon after that, it was actually my children that encouraged me to seek my doctorate. I had always now was interested in teaching because I had a lot of knowledge, I'd amassed a lot of knowledge about the career, and I wanted to be able to share that with younger social workers. My career as a child welfare social worker, especially, gave me the opportunity to mentor or to supervise interns, and that's when I really got into really wanting to pass that knowledge. I began to feel sort of an obligation to do that. And so it was really my children that encouraged me. And I said, well, I can teach with a master's. And they said, well, yeah, you can. And I thought about it and I said, well, I'll never be able to be a full professor if I don't get that doctorate. And I said, let's go for it. And that's really what pushed me. I actually, the same year that I completed my master's degree from Jackson State, I actually enrolled that October in Capella University and completed my DSW several years later.
Such a great story. I love it. And I love that you had the momentum going. It felt like, you had that BSW for years,
Yes,
did the work, was in the trenches, well, all that, whatever, having just the
yes.
BSW, there's value there, but
Oh,
there's
yes.
so much more potential, as you said, with that MSW, whatever licensing experiences you want to have, and like you said, the
Right.
PhD or the DSW, but you had that BSW for years. And some people, often think, oh, I've just been doing this for so long, I'll just keep doing it, or they're complacent, or it's been so many years since I was out of college. What would that even look like going back? But you didn't let none of that stop you. I love it. You didn't let
No, I
none
did.
of those reasons why people don't go back. And I'm curious, I'm going to finish my thought, but I'm also curious about, and you went back to Jackson State, which that must mean they have a program that makes you feel at home. But then, as soon as you got that momentum going, you just kept it going, went
Yeah.
straight into that DSW, and now you're sitting in this academic seat of both being the field director and now the MSW program coordinator. I am like the trajectory of your whole life changed when you went
It
back
did.
to school.
It did.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I there was right before, right in between my child welfare experience, I actually went to the Department of Health. And so I kind of watched the child welfare system transform from a distance. And I missed it. And so I decided to leave uh, public health and go back into the child welfare system. And so that's when I went back, I knew that that trajectory for them was that they wanted those persons with the MSW. And so I was able to go into supervision, the supervision level based on my BSW um, degree and my experience. But in order to maintain it, I had to bring that MSW to the table because they were seeking those higher skills for child welfare because we know how important it is, and so that's pretty much those agencies understand the value. They really do understand the value of the MSW in so many areas for supervision, for policy reviews, and all of that. So that value and that is there.
Absolutely. Absolutely it is. I have this is a social work question, and those in social work will get it.
Okay.
Now that you're sitting on this macro view, right? I'm wondering, how do you feel, and I know you are, in what ways are you impacting still the meso micro field in the sphere of social work called child welfare? So now that you're at the macro level, how do you feel like you are still impacting the meso and micro level of the child welfare stream?
Well, definitely through the education of social work students, in my case, MSW students, and bringing that experience, that very real grassroots experience to them, being able to carefully share with them real time stories, real things that have happened. They can see me and they can say, so you survived that career path. Yes, I did. I survived child welfare. I learned to go into people's homes. I learned to teach them um, skills that they needed to change their paths themselves. I also strengthened my ability to treat people with dignity and respect that other people would say did not deserve dignity and respect. Putting that empathy to real practice for people that are marginalized. Because sometimes we think our clients are always the victim. Sometimes our client is the perpetrator of situations. And so we bring those, real practical tenets of social work to that classroom and say, you've got to be able to treat people that society would bring disdain upon. You've got to be the one that brings that respect to them and that dignity to them in their moment as your client. And you've got to do this. You don't get to pick and choose who you're going to treat fairly and with respect. You have to bring this as a full commitment to this profession, because this is what this profession is about, because this is how we get to deliver those services. Because now people understand that we're there for their good. We're not there to harm them. We're there to help them. And if it comes down to them rejecting, then we respect their right to determine. Self-determination is one of the most difficult things for students to grasp, because sometimes they feel like, well, they shouldn't make that choice, or a mom who's been in domestic violence should not choose this path or that path. You don't get to make those determinations. You have to be committed to the tenets of this profession. And so bringing that into the classroom and giving them a perspective where I've had to do those very things and understand that maybe I had a different belief about it, but that's not what I was there for. I was not there for my belief. I was there to service that family and that client.
Yell it from the rooftops. The client's right to self-determination
Yes.
and the value of having real life social work practice and bringing it to the classroom is priceless. It is priceless, right? Because it doesn't look like what the textbooks
It doesn't look like the textbook, no.
say it looks like. So awesome. I love that so much, Dr. Reed. I could sit here and talk social work with you for hours, but I need to ask the next question.
Okay.
One of the premises of this podcast is to create community. In what ways do you feel like you are a part of specific social work communities? And are there any communities that you feel like you've created that social workers are a part of?
Well, actually, I would definitely like to expand my local community connection with my other professionals. I would love to do that. I've only been in my particular area for a short period of time, so I would like to see that expand. But at the private school, and I will call their name S.L. Jones Christian Academy, in developing the program for them called Counseling and Professional Services for the last 5 years, that started with me and a request from the principal to try to bring another aspect of assessment to their students. Because one of the things they were doing was not really working for them when students had some severe behaviors. They didn't really have a lot of options for those students, and they didn't really know what direction to send them in. And sometimes it just meant the student having to leave the school, but with no direction. And so I was able to develop a program for them in which, when there's a behavior issue, we were able to get in, make some assessment, and make some referrals to the parents. So in that regard, we brought social work to that private school, which necessarily would not have even hired a social worker, not really knowing what value that social worker could bring. After that, I was able to bring in interns from the University of West Florida, and they were able to expand and build upon what I was already doing there, and in turn get that practice that they needed. So what happened was then the principal then hired a second social worker to help with that, and it just kind of moved from there. So now we're bringing in other social workers from other social work students from other interns. I would love to see that school go to 2 full-time social workers, because the need is definitely there. And for them to now be able to have a second source for those parents, giving them recommendations, helping them in-house with the teachers, giving them some guidance in the classroom, how to deal with certain behaviors in the classroom, and just building their knowledge of maybe working with children with some difficult and challenging behaviors, and able to keep in order to keep that child in the classroom. So we've built some social work values there. And because that school has a religious background to it, sometimes that social work and religion sometimes clash. And so being able to combine those communities together has been very it's been a reward to see kind of the layers come off, and they start to embrace social work and say, hey, we're not here to just dominate you. We're here to add some value to what you're already doing, and we're not here as your enemy. We're here to just expand and help with the needs of your students. And for them to start to embrace us has been very rewarding. So in that way, we've expanded community. And just to have those interns leave and go out into the community, they've come through that internship and they've gotten some valuable things. So in that way, that community is always expanding.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. And did I hear that is so great. I love that. I was talking to a school social worker recently, I think in season one, and loving the momentum we got going with social workers being in the public school. And you just kind of blew that up. And it's like, no, we're also in the private schools and would love to see your program being a blueprint for other private schools
Yes,
to catch on and say this is not social workers aren't just in the public school setting, we're also in the private schools. Why are your needs any different from the
exactly.
babies in the public school, and let us be of assistance to you. Oh, Dr. Reed, that's awesome. That
Yes,
is
put
so,
us in the budget. Put us in the budget.
yes, make us a line item. I love it.
Exactly.
I love it. Dr. Reed, what is one belief about social work when you started that you feel has changed the most since the time you began?
Um, well, I don't know if it was a belief that I held, but it was definitely a philosophy, I would say, of one of my instructors at Grambling State University. I was always interested and was asking questions about, well, why can't we prevent some of these things that go on? And one of the things the professor said, and I believe that it was in good intent, was that well, we don't come in at prevention, we come in when the problem starts. So I would say that that would be the biggest change. And I didn't ever want to embrace that, but it bothered me that why do we have to just always come in when a problem starts? So I think the thing has changed is that we can get ahead of some of these problems. We just have to do it in different ways. And we have to come in with the education piece. Even if we come in the problem, we can possibly find ways to prevent other problems or from those problems getting bigger. So that prevention piece is still available to us. And I think that is what I'm happy to now know that we do have the ability to prevent certain things through that education piece that we don't always get the time to do, or we don't always get the public money to do. And I think that is what that professor was trying to tell me, is that the public money that is there when the problem exists, like child welfare, is not always there for prevention. And I begin to understand that later. And so hopefully maybe in years we'll see that change as well. We may begin to see some public money, some government money going towards bigger preventions that social workers can spearhead, because we know what those problems, we know where they come from.
We do. And that's why we need to make sure we continue to have social workers at the policy level, right?
Yes.
Yeah. That was always my favorite class was,
I love
yeah,
policy. We don't
yeah.
we couldn't get through it if we started talking about policy.
I know we won't go there. You're speaking about love language today, Dr. Reed. I'm loving it. I do have, it's just filled my cup. So thank you for saying yes. I love talking about social work, but I just have one final question. We talked a lot, Dr. Reed, about value and just all the different areas social workers are in, and we see how multi-talented you are. But one of the
Thank you for
things,
that.
yes, one of the
Yes.
things that I think you taught us today, you know how to also I talked about you speaking my love language or just social work, but apparently you know how to speak business owner love language. One, to get 300 business owners or businesses to agree to be, social work intern sites, to have your own business, to work, speak to the business of private schools, and like, this is good for business, having a social worker in your school. And one of the words that she used repeatedly during our conversation was value, right? And so, when I think about value, I'm also thinking about monetary value and how social workers bring monetary value through prevention work, right, to businesses as well. But one of the things social workers I think are really good at is, working with the people, working with working the grassroots. But sometimes we kind of struggle a little bit with that business aspect, right? With the money and the
Yeah.
coins and doing what it takes to run a successful business. You are running one. You didn't bring it up only in the bio. If you want to shout it out, obviously, I would love for you to be able to do that. But can you talk to the social workers who are wanting to be business owners and help get us started?
Wow. Well, you're probably talking about my nonprofit, which is a 501c3 basic building blocks. And I am definitely still building that. But I had it's the education piece, that prevention piece that was driving me all the way back from BSW. And what I wanted to do was I wanted to be able to put that into some type of momentum. So I looked into what it would mean to have a nonprofit, and I'm definitely still looking for funding for that. I have some minor funding. And what rang true was that prevention money is not there, but there's money, there's grant money out there for that. And then there's private donors, that people that get behind you. And so basically, what I did was, and am still doing, I brought a group of people together. I talked to them about my vision, so to speak, of what I wanted to do. And the three tenets of it basically is to uh, target those at-risk youth that I worked mostly with in child welfare, in public health, in the group homes, those who became adults in the prison system. So those people that I had seen throughout, and I thought, what if I could teach them three skills that I saw missing in most of my clients throughout my 30 plus years of grassroots social work. I saw the inability to um, make decisions, the inability to resolve conflicts without any type of violence, and not being able to just communicate their needs. And that brings a lot of frustration. And so I brought that group of people around me. We started to look in what it meant to do. And we went on the website for, in this case, nonprofits, just going on the state websites to see, how do you start this? What do you need? You need a board, you need all of these type of things. And so I just started to do the research on what to do, how to obtain a 501c3 status. And basically, it's building that team, build a team around you, people that are like-minded. The interesting part is that I did not get another social worker to work with me until almost 3 years in to starting my nonprofit. And that's one of the things that I hope to definitely take to another level in the next year or so. Right now, like I said, I use a lot of community resources to help bring those life skill classes. So I pull them in to teach those students those skills. And as well, I provide some, but not most. Mine is mostly consulting and kind of oversight and just kind of driving the machine. But basically start at that that state level. How do you start a nonprofit? If you want to do an LLC, you could do quite the same. If you wanted to do something of that nature, you basically just start with that research for at the state levels to see what it is that you need to do. Build a team around you, write the vision, make it plain, and then you go from there. If you have the ability to already know that there's a need, then you capitalize on the fact that you already see that need and fulfill that need, and that's basically it for me. That's kind of how it started.
I love that. That was so great. Very thorough too. I heard, see what the gap is, do your research, and then write it down.
Yes.
That's what I heard. It's like there's always gaps in services, and social workers are so good at seeing what those gaps are.
Yes.
And then if it's a passion of yours, right, we'll see lots of gaps. But then whatever that passion is of yours,
Right.
go in that direction, see the need, fill the gap, do your research, and then write it down. I love that so much. Dr. Jenny L. Reed, it was so good having you on the Goddesses of Social Work podcast today.
Thank you. This is very exciting. I'm so glad to have been made aware of this podcast, and I'll definitely be an avid listener.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. We love that. Dr. Reed can be reached at basicbuildingblocks1@mail.com and at 850-281-9748.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of the Goddesses of Social Work podcast. We are glad you were here. If you like this episode, please come back to hear more stories of the journeys through social work, and please leave us a review on Apple or Spotify. See you next time here on the Goddesses of Social Work podcast.